Good? Yeah. Alright. Part 1 is interpretation of the negative. Let's consider the applicable value, the hypothetical consequence of a policy action. 1, fairness, anything with 6, but the one is the often restart the 1 year. I think 13-7-minute advantage means we have a course discussion in the subject discussion slightly better. Independently, there's a huge spectrum of political theories. The cake can be radical on both sides of the spectrum. Multifunctional, often insufficient to interact with every single one. Prefer independently. 1, role playing as policymakers keep solving group role problems. Coverstone. The motivation of personal political activism is along the relative life economic political strategy debate. Constituting students we combine personal experience with language political power, narrative, unconnected power, cooperative role playing, learning power, simulation, success, empowering, manage myself on starting a socialist revolution, no less fancy, manage myself on Capitol Hill 1. Fancy not making greater difference than one that speaks language political power. Other two was acting like laughing at also my both about key fairness and limits your ability to other things like scapness, free burns, and other deflationary arguments that function dibs on the app. Third, no negative RVI. H shows my ability to read 1 year theory. Because you can collapse in the NR. 1 year theory, so you can combat time, so you can split the NR, so you can't sit on one issue. B, incentivize to be super abusive in the NC, because you can just go for the RVI and the 2 NR. You can win out truly abusive positions in the NR just by virtue of time advantage. C, there's no way to feedback and RVI is good enough, and when the counter-interpretation is making 1 year theory a game over issue for the app, use choice substantive education, because you're incentivized to be abusive in the class theory plus the RVI. 4, negative use, I was asked, use negatives reactive, you can always pick a strategy to app the app, have a good shot, win around 6 by 2 armies, you can never answer the 1 year. You can answer the 1 year drop from the coverage issues. 5, half gets 1 year theory and meta theory deters negative being inflamed abusive, otherwise they'll all win. Meta theory ensures aggregation theory, now live on the highest layer. 6, 1 year theory is drop the remainder of the 1 year, too short to be able to rectify abuse and actively cover substance. You should be punished. 7, the negative must accept the ethical framework to clarify they must impact all substantive offense back to neutral. They also cannot reconceptualize the 1EC framework to link other types of offense that are distinct from the 1EC type. For example, if I read extinction impacts, and you should also have read extinction or consequential with impacts like that, the standard is times you, because step 460 times 213 for rebuttal, they can make irresponsive arguments both pieces, but I only have the 1 year. Moreover, I have to extend often twice, but they only need once. AEC solves negative times 2 by forcing bit to 1 layer where both missing weight instead of having one both framework and offense framework in the form that 1 year times 2 keep fairness, because you need to time create a wall having quantitatively sufficient argument for actions without implication to reject all offense that doesn't link the AC standard means no RBI. It wasn't a voting issue to begin with. Also, even full topic education good is stiffly bad in debate. 1, low quality arguments and misconceptions like field discussion. Evil 13. Debate is often making an objection regardless of quality. Explanation policy, more time spent the arguments. More objections trade off with better objections. Misunderstanding a person. The vast majority use util to describe any principle with consequence or relevant. There are many non-usual versions of consequential. 2nd, debate teaches equivocation and structural issues to dispute, prevent education. Evil 2. Debates intentionally misrepresent field. Debates may be reactive from philosopher while glossing over each use of not advocating terminology. 10 people presented agree to many arguments and now are too poorly explained to fast to be understood now. The case. Advantage 1 soft power. Soft power will bring collapse. 2015. American powers are dominant global institutions. American soft power secure for now. Practices make American power under threat. Ideology ends within the last step. Time taking student may find itself in terminal decline on gun violence or soft power. Try die. Not taking action makes it worse. Friedland 13. America's guns are in soft power makes punishment like a model like a basket. When gun masters truck for lawmakers act. The U.S. president incapable of innocent Americans gun. The U.S. is the bottom. Every time a conservative individual would defend the power America faces a little more. The link is perception. I don't need to win that I reduce gun violence. Acts eternal impact. 1 K 7. The concept of soft power is going to be universal perception. They enhance soft power because of domestic choice in America. So the disadvantage to perceive illegitimate U.S. elections are very to the international community, national policy, and gun ownership. Puts America in a minority. Soft power solves multiple terms for extinction. 9. If a nation believes America will generally fit and follow our leads, jobs and power threats, pandemic disease, collapse of financial markets are more likely. Nuclear catastrophe will become more likely. Number 2, case increases climate change, raises new threats, states relating to prevention and a great risk. Extinction now is every impact and fits under every firm. Is likely to correct all more value. Risk is magnitude times probability. Extinction is infinite magnitude. It's infinite risk. That's how every possible impact, even if it's incredibly unlikely. Extinction fits on nuclear framework. Infinite risk will rise. Advantage 2 is the arms trade tree. Small arms control save an infinite number of livestock for 1 death every single minute. Output 12. The ATT would save countless lives by keeping websites in the hands of those users to make human rights abuses. Far from preventing leisure activities, she will help warlords, militias, and dictators from killing armed violence kills 1 person every minute. Small arms that create escalation of violence conflict. Redder 97. Small arms make combustible combination. This conflict may erupt from an extremist desperate go turn to violence solution, making firearms available like a lightning mastery, fuel tank, and extinction. Miller 14. Escalation arising out of conventional conflict between neither policy nor acting. Aliens believe that nuclear wars would likely emerge like conventional conflict. Escalation is a route to nuclear conflict and more likely than many. Nuclear escalation destroy everything that we value, and U.S. action is key to an international small arms treaty. AP 12. The U.S. generally voted with the U.S. casting no adoption treaty requires consensus. All countries have as national regulation to prevent states from transferring conventional weapons. The United States government has resisted the question. The decision Obama will make. We're looking for this treaty to prevent the flood of weapons on the hands of warlords and domestic hypocrisy autonomize the treaty. Only pragmatic domestic follow-on ensures smooth implementation. McDonald 14. It was applicable from those states that ratified the treaty ensures and for there be no room for double standard. But no one can put political interest before law. The treaty maintains a radical shift in behavior by major arms exporters who must lead the way in responsibility. Solved to resolve. The 50 states of the United States of America and Washington, D.C. ought to ban private ownership of handguns in a buyback program modeled off the one implemented in Australia. Spark 15. In 2 nationwide gun buyback, plus large voluntary spenders, state gun amnesty, dark drug collecting charge more than 1 million firearms, the government banned importation of weapons, buyback was paid by special one on patching all Australians, all graded links to dissents and cross-sects, so default that IBT and spec interpretations that they don't clarify, and this emphasis on point, literature reviews, comprehensive data, and studies that prove causation, and analytic warrants all full app. The stops gun violence, 6 and 11. The rate is over 20 times greater than other countries. 1/2 of homicide victims can hang in the cheapest concealability without weapons that still substitute are less nuclear. Analysis of conflict comparative data. 3 studies found the prevalence of firearms correlated with firearms homicide. 8 studies 26 times countries. The homicide rate was in the U.S. with 5 times higher in it. Review of the literature. There's substantial association with gun ownership and homicide. Any cause of leader makes by murder and homicide in general. This turns and sees 8 threats of bodily security, difficulty, ability for moral action to directly act on other moral theories, and there are initiated crisis that inhibits ideal moral conditions to other theories presupposed to be spawned. It also prevents the instantiation of an ethical theory since individuals cannot reflect upon it, which is lawfully prior to any ethical theory. His point is that there's no intention for citation, methods, intention, motivation, and value agents have no bearing on action. Enoch. Think about medical position. The physician foresees the patient will be relieved by morphine. This is not why he acts. Asian entities are relevant, more politically relevant action. They are for the evaluation of the agent. The intent forcing the agent is two mental states. It's between two mental states without moral weight. Now, the framework morality is action guiding. Does moral categories like goodness must account for their action guiding properties. We can only understand moral action as coherently action guiding the feedback principle of moral substitutability. St. Armstrong 1. I have reason to feed my child. I can't feed my child. I go home. I'm going home. Enably feed her. Therefore, there's a reason for A to X. There's arguments to substitutability. There's a reason for A to X, and if A cannot do X, not do Y, then Y will enable A to X, and there's a reason for A to Y. We can understand moral substitutability with a non-consequential theory. St. Armstrong 2. Deontological reason make deontological theories enabling more substitutability. What gives me a reason to start more as a consequence starting more? That's a consequence I'm able to multi that's saying non-consequential theory will have two kinds of reasons for starting more. Another for moving fast. Once these reasons are separate, we need to understand the connection between them, but this connection obviously explained by theory. And thus theories minimizing existential risk for additional justification. One for usual for real education, first discussion cost analysis, or pulse something that pulse making off. Second, the stake not here to side constraints the state action for a value trade-off Wooler. Public policy to redistribution of resources. One group is going to come to another group. System policy must reject the public offer. More principle field to not trade-off policy. Choose the public requires trade-offs on advanced society. Third, admitting to acts as wrong, acting harmfully. We have an obligation to prevent harm from occurring, such as real. Any effort distinction acts between goes wrong by overlooking the distinct feature governance and moral agent, like individuals government's office choice. The distinct acts between not being telephone in this context when it authorized private actions on and doing.
Weirdly, what you didn't.
It's just the last. It's just 4 and 5.
Or not. So you didn't read Ostrom and
no.
You didn't read the 5th one.
Correct.
Okay. Start CX now. So, for the first shell at the top of the AC, what are the internal links back to France and/or education for role playing?
Sure. The role playing arguments, like the cover stone evidence, that's just an independent reason why the role of out is educational because it sets us up to solve real world problems. There's fairness offense. That's why you have to concede the role of out regardless of
what's the fairness? What's the time skew argument?
Sure. It's that when you read a critical position that does not that impacts a separate role.
These arguments are specific to critical positions, right?
Well, obviously, if you read like an NC that's like entirely deflationary, like skepticism and stuff like that, that also avoids a debate in the 1AC, right? Because the 1AC presumes that skepticism is false or something like that, or like that death is good, stuff like that, or death is bad. Okay. So all those assumptions would be, if you undermine them, you still move the F, which is okay.
Cool. Let's see. So how's the plan solved specifically?
Sure.
How does the buyback program uniquely solve?
Wait, what?
How does a buyback program uniquely
The buyback program is just there for issues of specification. There's no unique.
Wait, so your solvency is not like contextualized in terms of buyback program?
No.
Okay.
It's just if you like you want like enforcement, but if you want like a separate enforcement mechanism to link your dissets.
Okay. Negative outweighs attributes. What does that mean?
That's the reason why harming me on theory would be worse than harming you on theory.
So like, what does that mean? Like, if you just like win like a small net benefit to counterinterpret, does that mean you like automatically win it?
I mean, obviously, you have to contextualize the weighing in the round, I guess. So, I don't know how much I would win that argument. So, like, the amount that I can use it to outweigh your offense on theory would be to the amount that I win that argument. So, it could be like a game over issue on theory, or it could just be like whether on like theoretical presumption or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. These arguments for no neg RBI. Let's go. Why are the arguments for why like not giving me an RBI are uniquely?
The ones that they are specific to you. So the A point is that destroy time ability to read 1 AR theory because you get to collapse in the NR. So I will not read 1 AR theory in that situation because it's necessary for me to split the NR. Otherwise, you have the time advantage. The B is that it allows for the proliferation of really bad norms because in the NC, even if you read a truly abusive position, the fact that I have to limit myself to maybe 1 or 2 minutes on theory, but you have the entirety of the 6-minute 2 NR to go for the RBI, you can win off truly abusive positions just because of time advantage. So you lead to the proliferation of bad norms and more unfairness. C argument is that the 2AR is not long enough to win 2 separate issues, i.e. an RBI's good dump and win the counter-interpretation. So the introduction of 1 AR theory is game over for me. And the D point is that it destroys substantive education because you're incentivized to be abusive. And then collapse theory plus the RBI. And it's even worse in terms of the negative because of the time advantage.
Okay. Do you read Wayne for timescape?
There's no reason why timescape would outweigh other fairness arguments in that.
Okay. Starting prep.
See who it is in Boston. 27. It's going to be 19 tomorrow.
I've never seen it. I like that. Yeah.
Last year we got 3 blizzards in 2.5 weeks.
Oh, yeah, you got this.
So, at one point, because my apartment's on a hill, there were dudes walking up the street. There's like 3 feet of snow on the ground. There's dudes walking up the street with snowboards. And they were just snowboarding down the street.
These Nebel arguments are just to like preempt like AFC destroys Phil Ed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if there's other theoretical issues where Phil education becomes relevant, they would also implication that.
A minute 32 left. Or is it going to be 2 off case AC? I'll flash back now.
You said 132?
132 indeed. Indeed.
How much do you have left?
1 minute and 32 seconds. Alright. There you go. Refresh it. On the app, it's going to start on the top, and then I'll sign post after that.
Sorry, could you repeat the order?
2 off case, AC. His name is like 1 and C quarters. You've just got full res.
And sorry again, where did we say we're starting on the app?
On the app, it's going to start at the top.
First office theory, A interpretation. Debaters' theory shells must function through the norms creation model or NCM, not the abuse model. Clarify an interpretation NCM proposed a rule that would produce better norms or debate that opponents on incompatible interpretations. Arguments like I mean the standards, not the interpretation, don't make sense, and interprets the way standards generate often. A violation would say rules set norm to the debate community. This is by showing the opposing debate is a violation norm, but by showing the opponent's action is an in violation rule. Unnecessary proposed rule is not set to set norms to debate. The standards show that benefit and interpret the terms of a voting issue, and the voters show why the superiority of the interprets and mandates about for the debater advocating it. The violations that you say in the AC that neither debate that the next should not get an RPI, but under NCM, any net beneficial interpretation is sufficient for you to vote for because you vote for the interpretation that is a better norm for debate. And currently in debate, people do not read through a norms creation model, which is evident in communal norms like no RPIs and reasonability standards. The standards norm creation punishment views and theory requires a judge vote for down debaters who read inconsistent proposed norms. There's no way to predict those rules, not knowing any culpability enforcement or rule impossible. My model solves even with the voter requires that the debaters read the best exemplifies the norm, opposing the voter is to drop down who violates it. This is more semantic because the violation proves the norm set not just that the opponent did something wrong, showing the need to change his key viewpoint. My model uniquely spreads norms to debate by specifying the exact norm for a debate community through the interest clear what advocacy judge should compare by contrast to the abuse model theory, which is using interest to clarify the abuse of standards. This leads to unclear norms of debate, only able to evaluate offensive theory debate through standards clarified the abuse model, only clear norms. It's true, making it impossible non-interventions to explain a debate's consistency with norm clarity, and one evaluate communities' reaction to proposed norm, not a package of standards debate. This has a few implications. One, quality and rigor of theory debate. Limitation on theory not prevents in-depth discussion. Debaters who are enforcing cover on theory, substance, and rigor of theory on RPI, allowing collapsing, truly engaging in theory debate. Quality theory is good for key to good norms because bad theory debates destroy friends because you can't lose with bad luck being. Affirmative intervention. Second is solves time and strategies you have against affirmatives because that lose because they
don't have the time to sufficiently cover substance theory. Both debaters have to have an equal amount of time covering arguments about the same time the analysis of very reciprocal debates. 3. When debaters are forced to commit that they have to improve their argumentation, increase hash debaters are deterred from running theory shells, voice argumentation, and if debaters are not held there into the neck and read multiple terrible theory shells instead of reading good ones, this causes bad quality of theory debates to good strategy. The norms commission is a voter because the function of the voter is to set a norm for an interpretation and making the style of voting issues necessary for debaters to engage in the issue, allowing the norm to spread the ballot is key because debaters only run positions, but that one if debaters only win theory debates and then they run this model norm is congealed through the community and norm creation controls the interlink and any other theory impact on either school because we both look to the abuse model and ought to promote the best norm and debate and abuse perpetuated by the norm and go entirely if we look the best interpretation model then we ought to promote the best interpretation run exemplify the longer term impact we ought to go for the best norm exemplify theoretical interpretation because it justifies the way theories are viewed. Moreover, norm creation controls the impact on any other voter because we truly want to promote the voter because first education must be clear into what constitutes it. Next, my theory comes before a theory and meta theory because it proposes a new way to interpret the evaluate theory. So if I win it logically preclude evaluation theory shall function in different ways and if you win my model is the debate is about the counter-interpretation would not be an RBI. The abuse model simply implies that you vote for a debate who promotes a better rule, proving that you must engage in some practices insufficient. A model under practice violation rule sufficient warrant about, which means that if you win the counter-interpretation just proves that the norms creation model is false, which means that the abuse model is true, and under the abuse model, then RBI would be incoherent, which means under your counter-interpretation you should not get an RBI. Second off. Under consequentialism, any action would be permissible. 1. And past experiences have no effect to casualty. The proposition that the moon comes every night, not warranted by the fact the moon appears at night after the last sky. Hume. The course of nature may change and the object may be kind of different effect. We can engage in arguments to trust the past experience must extend the future judgment. These arguments must be probable cause and based on an opinion to relation cause and effect and knowledge is experience and the conclusion proceeds supposition future confirmation of the past approved. The last supposition probable arguments must evidently go through a circle. And second, under consequentialism, we can never judge an action into innately bad because the consequence is always shifted, which means any action will be permissible and scope. Consequentialism is shallow. Consequentialism is right would be circumstances because what would permissible one cannot prescribe an action in actual cases. The consequences no fitting what would be permissible consequences or decide there's nothing intrinsic to revolt against. To clarify, my argument is that indicative of whether or not util is a true moral theory, which means you cannot extend AFC to take these arguments out. My argument is that if it is true that util is true, then any action under that framework could be permissible, and that negates. A point is that to negate means the nature of the which means that any argument renders affirming a false is sufficient to negate. If an assumption AC makes a false resolution also false, i.e. if my parents don't exist, then it's impossible to say that they want you to do homework because the statement presupposes parents exist in the first place. 3 point the resolution begins with the word resolve, which means to decide burden on a course of action. So if the act needs to prove a proactive obligation, which needs permissibility negates because the lack of strength of the term resolved also means merely no reason not to affirm, which means decide weakly sequence. Even under comparing worlds, it negates because it requires them to prove a statement. The aft world is more desirable. Neg world is true. However, my argument denies their ability to prove that statement. True under util, and neither debate has any offense, so you presume which negates. A point is that we assume a statement false until proven true. It means we don't believe in alternate realities, conspiracy theories, the lack of the reason something false and not assumed to be true. P point is that statements are more often false than true. If I say a pen is red, I can only prove a statement is true, demonstrating indeed red. I can prove it's false, infinite number of ways of providing another color. And since there are infinite number of amounts of colors, it will most likely false. Case. Start on the top talking about roll of the ballot in session. The counter-interpretation is that the role of the ballot is to vote for a debate who better proves the truth or falsity of the resolution. The reason for 1 indicating the start A point is has the ability to super specific plan and continue its front line. The F next doesn't have necessarily the B point is class on undercovered issues the way and C point is 1 AR up there with stuff like 1 AR case that can move the entirety of the 7 minute speech time and truth testing solved because it gives the next generics like skepticism, which is key to negative strategy because otherwise it breaks you can break new and read specific super specific plan text. Also the reason why negating is harder also classifies to the fourth spike because it also classifies to the fourth spike and second is that all arguments evolve into some conception of truth free. 3. We cannot recognize property without realizing thought of something a true property without every property to join its property of truth. I smell violence has the same context as a sentence. It is true that I smell scent of violence. Nothing is that thought describing my property is true. Which means that since truth testing is inevitable, non-unique to the entirety of your offense because even if there is a time to truth testing is the only way for us to actually evaluate things in the first place. Now on your shell, the time to standards is completely non-unique because we both have 13 minutes. Also, because you say that it completely moves speech time, but obviously you could read something like truth testing and then if we agree that that's the true rule of the math, then that means that it would not unique all of your offense. Then on the third, the cornerstone argument is does not have an impact because fairness precedes any evaluation of educational instances in the first place. And then on the third argument says that you can go for skep, but my argument impact turns this because skep is key to next strat. Now now the AFC. Counter-interpretation, negative may not accept the consequential standard if they don't specify theory of the good. 1 terminal defense on the European side because you can still read AFC with util, you just must specify theory of the good. And second, even if it is util, the F has the ability to read super specific plan continue frontline the F in which the negative doesn't necessarily know the F. AFC takes away generics and key to next strat because I'm forced to only engage in contention of the F, which is better prepared on. And if you do not specify a theory of the good, I do not know what constitutes consequence, which means that it's much harder for me to actually turn the NC, which means framing. And the shell should be an RBI. If with the 1 and C, the only opportunity after generating offense, forcing me to allocate time to pure defense while the African reading offense shells in 1 RB. So B1 paragraph theory, preemptive theory, especially hard to engage in because I don't know how functions as per the 1 EC and the RBI compensates because otherwise it's just an auto win for the app. Also, you can't extend the arguments from the second fight to take these out because these are specific as to why 1 AR theory is not an RBI. My arguments are saying that if I read counter interpretations to paragraph theory in the AC, those should be an RBI.
Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. So let's talk about the first interpretation. What is the violation of the interpretation?
So the argument is that your theory arguments must function through
Right. Why is the
norms
app
creation
not?
model.
Why is the app not a norms creation model?
Because your argument is that.
Well, actually, let's make it clear. What criteria does the app theory arguments have to meet to be justified or to be a norms creation model?
You must not say that RBIs are bad because otherwise it is a violation of norms creation model. Because under the norms creation model, you vote for the interpretation that is net better for the debate.
So
overall.
my interpretation is that the negative should not have RBIs. Why is that not net better? Is it just that it was not explicitly phrased that the negative does not have access to an RBI?
No, the argument is that, well, one, if it's not phrased explicitly as an interp, that's not offense under norms creation.
Right,
Second,
so it's not
RBI,
theory. Wait. So the RBI bad arguments are merely framing issues on theory, right? They're not theory
So
shells
the
that
fact
can
that you
extend offensive in the one AR.
Yeah, the interp is that theory argument.
Mm-mm.
Theory argument.
It says theory shells. This is the interp that I'm looking at right now. It says debaters' theory shells must function to the norms creation model or FCN, not the abuse model. No neg RBI is not a theory interpretation, right? It is a question of framing on theory.
That is an interpretation on how you frame theory. That is a
Wait, how is it? Yes, it is a framing. Okay, what is a theory shell?
A theory shell arguments that impact back to fairness in education.
Okay, so even if they don't indict a practice, they would not.
So if you say
so I have not read my no neg RBI argument as an offensive argument. It was merely framing on theory, right? Because every single other time I read an offensive theory interpretation, I phrased it as an explicit interpretation. So obviously, no neg RBI is not an interpretation. So why does the abuse still apply?
So the abuse still applies because the fact that you are not giving, the fact that you are like prohibiting an RBI for one would be a violation under norms creation, right? If your theory arguments, right? So like say you extend AFC and then cross apply no RBI, right? That would be the violation because under that interpretation, you do not give the neg access to an RBI,
right?
Which means that shell does not function on the norms creation model, right? Which means that any of the theory arguments.
What?
Okay.
Wait. So if I read a new interpretation, I cross by no negative RBI,
all
of a sudden my shell is not a norm.
That would not be under the norms creation
because
model.
So that goes back to the first.
Because you make because the theory shell itself does not function under norms creation
because it had no negative RBI, which takes us back to the first question, which is why is no negative RBI a violation if it's not an offensive shell?
Yes, because that is a framing issue that you adopt for all of the shells that you can potentially read. For instance, you read AFC.
So let's make this clear then. You say norms creation is a voter, and you may read all these framing issues on theory, like my theory comes before other theory. These are all framing issues on theory that are also not phrased as explicit interpretations. Why don't you also violate?
Wait, what do you mean?
So you make framing arguments like my theory comes before other theory. The counter-interpretation is not an RBI. These are all
so the counter-interpretation is not an RBI is a unique argument to this shell.
What is the distinction between the arguments about no neg RBI and the next argument?
The argument about that is that if you win a counter-interpretation to this shell specifically, it would prove the abuse model true, and under the abuse model, an RBI would be incoherent.
Why?
Because under abuse model, if you win like an interp is good, it proves just no abuse on that initial shell.
Okay, also correct. What's the theory of the good?
What consequences, like contextualize which specific consequences we should promote.
Okay, cool. So your A point for why the paragraph theory shell should be an RBI is the 1C is the only opportunity you have to generate new offense. So why could you not just read more offensive theory in the 1C?
The argument is that you forcing me to reply to like shells in the AC without offense completely moots that only speech time that I have.
Right, but the 1NC gets reciprocal access to that, right? Because I can also generate an RBI. So why would that matter?
Wait, what do you mean?
That's fine.
Okay.
Can you explain the Anscombe argument to me?
Yeah, so what Anscombe says is that under consequentialism, we can never determine actions as innately good and bad because we determine whether or not something is good based on the consequence it promotes.
Why do we need to have some innate understanding of what is good or bad?
Right.
Wait, the app. Okay, so the app says consequences that lead to bad things are innately bad, right? And then it judges action.
But those consequences are subject to shift. So if I said action A kills 10 people, we would on face say that is an action we should try to prevent. But then if I said action B on the other hand kills 15 people, then we would say action A would be more moral.
Right. So the principle is more people dying is bad. That seems like a fixed principle.
But the argument is that we never understand things to be inherently bad. Like we do not understand that people dying is an innate bad thing. Rather, you say people dying is permissible insofar as less people die. If that makes sense.
What is the argument for why this is your permissibility arguments are still offense underneath AFC?
The argument is that my arguments at top are not indicative of whether or not util is a true moral theory. Rather, it says that if util is true,
right, but the interpreter said that you cannot. Actually, that's fine.
Is a contestation of what qualifies as offense.
Yeah. The only reason why, the only negative use that was after this argument was just defense on time, right?
There's 3 reasons why negative use outweighs that.
And are they those reasons?
Yes.
Cool. I have 30 seconds left. Okay. So the order is going to be starting off on the norm screen. Actually, we'll start off on the AFC debate on the second interpretation ethical framework choice. Then it's going to be the negative use that was after use argument / the RBI stuff that was on the app. Then the permissibility arguments, and then norms creation shell, then new auth at the end.
Wait.
Yeah, so the app ethical framework choice arguments. Okay. Then responding to basically the top of the app on the interpretation section, starting off on ABC. Then it's going to be the permissibility arguments, right? And then it's going to be the norms creation shell, then new auth at the end.
Okay. So extensions of AC paragraph theory. Responding to the counterinterps I made, then on permissibility negates, then norms creation shell.
And can you show me where the negative use I was after you started?
Yeah.
I had 34 seconds.
Where's my screen? Oh, this is, yeah.
Killing trees.
Negating, sorry.
The 4th time actually, so that's not. Well, I said killing trees, not killing dreams.
Oh.
Killing dreams too.
Killing trees, that's one.
Okay, is everybody good? Alright.
The negatives already lost the AC to make their count. They don't need their own counter. They don't need their own counterdiction. They say the counterdiction is if the app specifies a theory of the good. My share effect is minimizing existential threats. Which is the reason why I've specified what goods and what types of consequences boundary the ones figuring the counterdiction is absolutely non-competitive. They get 0 offense operated our interest on their offense anyway. They say sorry, that answers the number 1. The number 2 arguments that the app is still going to be very, very specific, super specific plane. Offense is not applying this instance because the app does not read a super specific plane. We have already a whole res affirmative case that's not impacted very between that. You also have actually all of your generic arguments. You can read down like policies and stuff like that, which is the reason why you have more than enough offense where you can see. You can also read like gun balance, stuff like that, which is terminal defense on the ground argument. At that point, the times you argument is dropping 7.62 times you argument, the 34 about 2 between that. You can move parts of the 1AC, which is especially bad because it is especially bad because it's forcing me to restart the 1 now. It also takes out their permissibility arguments to clear. Literally, this is a part of the interpretation to clarify they must impact all substantive offense to Utah. They cannot reconceptualize the 1AC framework to link other types of offense that are distinct from the 1AC's type. This was clarified to say that if the 1AC spends are reading arguments like extinction impacts and stuff like that, and consequences based on pragmatic benefit and negative offense must be of the same sort. This is obviously links to all my offense on the interpretation because when you say things like Utah's all principle, I don't get to weigh the after the contention is irrelevant after the 1AC, which means you link to all of my offense. They say that time doesn't matter because you both have 13 minutes. Obviously, it's a question of the distribution of time. If you have, even if we have started the same amount of time, if you have comparably more time to speak on each independent issue than we don't do enough interactions, you still link to all my time too often. Then extend the now go up and say extend the negatives. I was asking, starting with the negative reaction to the 1AC. You can always pick a strategy to have a good shot. And when you have the 6 minutes to an army, you can cover the 1 year drop ratio. They say that they said the
where's the negatives of that?
It's the on.
Okay, cool. There are arguments you have to believe it's true of the plan. I didn't do that very generic argument. There are arguments on plan this instance. There are recent arguments that the two national preempt every single argument. Obviously, that's not the case. The judge don't give me new responses than two hours. You have to preempt every single argument. Just make reasonable responses. There's 3 points to the 1 hour can up there with arguments like 1 hour case. Obviously, I'm not doing this fine. Obviously, and this is also not unique because you have to access the same sorts of arguments to me that our impact outweighs all of the and it's also empirically verified because negative when empirically when more and empirically proven the fact that you'll flip negative in this instance, which means that you have a completely better negative case. Then they say also don't need to answer the RBI stuff because I'm 1 AFC. Now, so since software advantage is conceded, I wouldn't impact extinction. The bottom of the app on the framework stuff. They have conceded all the theoretical justification because even if I lose AFC, there's sure reason why you should use Utah in the way that I've said to tend to prefer Utah for real education argument that encourages discussion with cost-benefit analysis of policy, something that policymakers often use, which is something that they cannot access. Which also means that permissibility underneath Utah is not the same type of education that I'm talking about. This question of justifying policies with they not do, which means that independent of me losing the AFC argument, I can still exclude the permissibility argument. Now let's go to the permissibility rate. First, the human argument is absolutely nonsense. The Wool argument takes action. The government always has to act, which means that even if the government is not sure about whether something will happen tomorrow, they still have to take an action. Second, they have a very demanding conception of justifying induction. As long as we're reasonably certain that impact will happen, we have enough information to actually take an action, which means their facts outweigh third. The TGF also takes out the AFC, but it also takes out the instrument is nonsense because we have a fixed principle. We said that you should go for impacts and minimize action threats, which means that yes, it might be the case that we have to look at each of the circumstances, but we still have fixed principles of what type of offense and what type of thing matters. That we have to take out the instrument. That takes care of the entirety of the NC substantive offense. So now let's go to the notice creation shell. This notice creation shell is BS. Context is embarrassing on the issue because there's no contextualization of why the app in any way reason offensive theory interpretation. His violation is that I read a no neg RBI argument, but obviously that's not an offensive theory interpretation because my argument is just a framing issue on theory. But if it's a question that all framing issue on theory would violate, it obviously means the interpretation also violates because he has arguments why his interpretation comes for other theoretical abuse stories and stuff like that. And he also has a reason why this shell outweighs and stuff like that. We're all framing issue on theory. Reasons why if I violate, he violates. Now the contradiction, anyways, that I don't think justify the norms creation moderate. My interpretation is better because norms are bad. One thing leads to the proliferation of more and more bad theory because you read impacts that just they usually tiny outround. Even if you wait an access to a tiny outround impact, you will read it even if there's no specific scenario, which means that it links all the arguments why you lead to the proliferation of good theory. It also means that I don't need to answer if there's spikes in the interpretation because they all depend on the internal link of them minimizing more theory argument. But we take that out. We support that norms creation obviously not like we're voting affirmative, we're voting negative. It's not to spill over future norms. If norms creation as a concept does not exist, that is the reason why none of their impacts make sense in the context of this argument. So obviously we don't violate the interpretation, so you vote out on substance. AFC takes up the principle of this stuff.
Yeah. I have a minute 30.
Yeah.
Starting now. or wait, no, I finished the one. Sorry. The order will be norms creation shell, then counter interps I made on case. Right. You can it'll first initially start with framing that you can flow on the norms creation shell.
Should I flow it like as a separate overview elsewhere?
It's like an overview to the round. You can like flow it as separate if you want. Like, flow the overview on top of that. How about that?
Okay. For the next two speeches, could y'all like pause long enough for me to like control find, or like?
Sure.
I mean, that, just to give you an idea, like what my flow looks like. You know, use that to your discretion, but like.
Actually,
so you're starting off on an overview on the app,
but then on norms creation.
Overview on the app, then norms creation, then back to the app, then counter interps.
Okay.
Okay. Is everyone good?
Yeah.
Shivane just screwed up. There are two ways for you to negate at the end of the round. One, he's conceded all of the reasons. That's why the norms creation solvency arguments and explicitly in the shell. These are conceded arguments, which means that my shell always comes first. Also, he conceded the entirety of the voter from the norms creation shell, and he does not extend a voter in the last speech, which means that you have to evaluate the round through a voter of norms creation, which means that my voter will always come. Which means that my voter always comes first. He does not explicitly link offense back to that, which means only I have offense back to that. So you would negate. Also, he says that he does not have to respond to the RVI arguments that I read on the case, but the problem is that he does not extend the first interp at the top of the app, which means he is conceding 100% strength of link on the counter interpretation I read there, which means that I have offense on the theory debate there also. So then I have offense back on the AC underview, and I also have offense on the norms creation shell. So now, go norms creation. Extending interpretation. Debate shells must function through a norms creation model or NCM, not the abuse model. Extending argument saying that an interpretation would propose a rule that's better for debate, and also extend that argument saying that showing the opponent's action is in violation of the rules unnecessary. A proposed rule to set the norm of the debate. You can call the interpretation. It literally spikes out everything that he went for in the last speech. The U violates and I means are not relevant under the norms creation model, because if I prove that's why my interpretation for debate overall is a better thing, that is sufficient for you to warrant a negative out. Then extend the violation that you 100% called concede. The argument that I make in the violation is that you frame all of your theory arguments through no RVI, i.e., when you extend an interpretation out of the AC, then that means that interpretation would mean that I do not get an RVI on that, which means that theory shell does not function through the norms creation model, which means that you violate the interpretation. The next argument, he says that I violate my interp, but the problem is that he is conceding the argument. The argument is contextualized in terms of my interp, i.e., if you win your counter interpretation, that means that it proves the norms creation model is false, and therefore it would prove that the abuse model is true, but under the abuse model, an RVI would be nonsensical, which means that if you win your counter interpretation, you should not get an RVI on that, because it proves a different metric for evaluating theory, and under that metric, that an RVI would be incoherent. Then extend the standards, which is where you're getting crushed. Extend the arguments as to why my interp is better for us to actually establish norms. The A point says that the voter forces the voter to better exemplify with norm, which means that extend the other argument saying that extend the B point saying that my model uniquely spreads norms because it specifies an actual norm through the interpretation, which means that because it forces debaters to actually establish norms through the text of their interpretations is much better. Then extend the other argument saying that my interpretation is uniquely key to quality and rigor of the theory debate, because it forces debaters to actually contest on theory and actually verify whether or not the norm is good, which is also terminal defense on all of the arguments that the counter interpretation goes for, because he says that we never establish good norms. About my argument is that we will know that we established good norms by the end of the round, because the norms creation model forces debaters to actually engage on that layer. Then extend the argument saying that it solves all time series strategies arguments against the affirmative, which means that even if there's a risk that he extends some argument out there that says fairness in education is actually a relevant impact to the round, then that would still have offense on that layer. Then extend the third argument saying that it forces debaters to commit to their theory arguments, which actually deters them from running bad theory shells, because if you are forced to commit to your theory shell, then you would obviously not defend a false norm, because you would get crushed on that theory debate, and then you would lose on the RVI, which only the norms creation model can solve, which means that there are unique reasons as to why my norm is better, as to why my interpretation is better. Now, on your counter interpretation, first, the first argument says, The first argument says that my interpretation will never proliferate norms. One, this is just a defensive argument, but there's obviously a much higher risk of offense on my interpretation, which is sufficient for you to negate. Second is that obviously if you win your interpretation, then that's a better norm that we should prioritize. Which means that my model also solves. Also, you do not get access to these arguments insofar as you do not weigh them against the arguments in the NC theory shell, which means that my arguments would obviously outweigh. A point is that they're 100% cold conceded. B point is that these arguments actually prove as to why forcing debaters to debate under this model would better establish norms because it forces them to actually defend it, which means that there's a much higher risk of an offense that I link back to the voter of norms creation. Then the second argument is that norms will never happen. One, you've conceded the voter, which is 100% responsive to the second, is that this is a claim without a warrant. You do not establish that's why norms will never happen. My argument is that when you vote for the negative interpretation, then that norm, then we recognize that that's a good norm, which would deter you from doing other things that are bad. Then extend the voter, extend the norms creation to the voter because it functions of norm interpretation. Then extend the argument saying that norms creation controls the internal link to every other theory impact, which means that you cannot extend your shell in the next speech and leverage it against mine. Then extend the argument saying that this comes as a prior question because it's actually the process of norming in the first place, i.e. the only reason things such as ethical choice matters in the first place is because you want people to not contest the ethical choice in future rounds, which means that the NC interpretation comes as a prior question. You have lost the theory debate. Now on the AC flow. First, you've conceded the first interpretation, and you've conceded reasons that's why you do not have any offense for extending counter-interpretation that the role of the balance vote for a debater who better proves a truth or falsity of the resolution. You've conceded the Freg 03 argument saying that truth testing is literally inevitable, which means that my interpretation is the only norm for debate, which is sufficient offense for me because the only way for us to actually debate in the round in the first place is through my interpretation, which goes cold conceded. Now, then extend the arguments that's why I should get an RBI which go cold conceded last week. Now, extend the second interpretation, the negative may not accept the as consequential standard if they do not specify the theory of the good. I'll concede the abuse on the second argument, but the one you've conceded that is terminal abuse on your AFC argument because my argument is that you can still read AFC, you just must specify theory of the good. You said that you specify minimizing existential risk, but you do not qualify in the last speech what existential risk actually means, which means that you would still violate. Then extend the argument saying that you can just no link from dissent by recontextualizing what existential risk is. So, framing on the theory debate is this. Norms creation is the only vote. You have no offense.
Your counter-interpretations, the offense to it impacts the fairness of education, right? So they don't matter. I guess. Okay, cool. Alright, so then let's talk about the one thing that matters is whether I validate this theory interpretation. So in cross-sites, I ask you, what criteria is there to see whether someone violates your norms creation model? And you just said that the no-neg RBI argument is violent. Can you now explain what it means to create?
When you extend a shell in the 1AR or read it, you would cross-apply that.
Like, I understand that you're saying that violates the norm creation model, but why does it violate the norm creation model?
Because that shell does not function under it because you deny me an RBI.
Well, why is that? Yeah, why is that RBI part? Okay, whatever. Alright, so it's going to be round overview, extensions of the as when answers to permissibility, then the norms creation shell. Cool.
Where are you starting the app?
Extensions of software. And actually, like all the substantive stuff, you can probably just throw in a very short overview, and then it's just going to be norms creation. Cool. Is that pretty good?
Yeah.
All right.
Incredibly easy round for me to adjudicate. First, if you don't understand the violation of notification stuff, very easy. After obviously, see all the response to the permissibility stuff, and you vote out from the soft stuff, which means that none of the counter-interpretation or any of that sort of matters. They all impact fairness in education. The only thing that you have to adjudicate is whether he wins the notification interpretation. Here's why he doesn't. Overview on the notification interpretations. I did not hear a response to the you violate arguments in the last piece, which means that it is game over for him on this issue. If all framing the issue on theory violate the interpretation, then his argument, and if I continue the counter-interpretation on the notification model is true, then all framing issues on theory violate the interpretation because they frame, if it's an offensive theory interpretation, then they frame after impact factor. His argument that no negative RBI violates his interpretation because if I read a 1-yard theory interpretation and then go for no negative RBI, that creates a norm. But that's just a framing argument. If all framing arguments violate, then your reason why your shall come first are also framing arguments. Even arguments why norms creation outweighs other impacts are still framing arguments. If all framing arguments violate, then you violate your own interpretation. His argument here is that you violate, I mean, obviously not matter, but obviously that is not the case because you have to, even to vote negative on a theory interpretation, you have to be sure that I actually violate the theory interpretation. If you're the least bit uncertain, then you should err heavily affirmative on the issue because you risk making the incorrect decision on the theory interpretation. You have a very easy out of substance power that's even in your paradigm. But now also, it's not not extend any. Also, he does not extend a single warrant in the entirety of the interpretation that responds to the central thesis of the 1 ER on the shell, which is that you have to weigh a reason why no negative RBI is an offensive shell being but no negative RBI has no offensive implication because it's merely a framing shell theory. In response to this, and through every single speech in last week, and when I've asked him about this, he says that the fact that I say no negative RBI automatically disproves that it violates the norm creation model, but there's still no criteria to the entirety of the 2 NR and what is a norm and what violates the norm creation model. If you do not have those arguments on your flow, you cannot feel comfortable voting negative on a theory interpretation and may or may not even violate, but even if I violate, then he violates his motion, that he definitely loses the round, which means that now let's go to the counter-interpretation side of the flow. The counter-interpretation should also be pretty easy to adjudicate. Obviously, I don't need to, obviously if I win the I mean, you don't even need to get to the counter-interpretation side of the flow, but this round will also be pretty easy to adjudicate on the counter-interpretation side of the flow. His only response to my norm setting does not exist arguments, or just that, it's just that at least his norm setting does not exist arguments, it's just that it is defensive, or just defensive responses, but obviously that is, if I win significant defense on the thesis of the one entity shell by norm creation, that norm creation does not exist, then the impact on my counter-interpretation would easily outweigh the offense on your theory interpretation. To extend my counter-interpretation that I, you can extend the norm creation model, extend that it's bad because it allows me to read theory on tiny out-around impacts even when there's no real abuse in the round, means that healing or proliferation are more bad. Don't you say create a conceded link term from the entirety of the 1 ER. That's an easy space for you to be talking about as a reason why you should reject the theory interpretation because it's conceded, so it outweighs on strength of link classified. It's the only reason why strength of link weighing outweighs. He has also conceded all the reasons why after use outweighs negative use, so an affirmative norm creation would be worse than a negative harmonic norm creation. So that's the other framing issue on the theory right now. He lets across, so then some of the arguments why norm setting is false because voting affirmative or voting negative on the theory interpretation does not do anything or create any kind of out-around impact. Is the reason why he does not access any of his impact further. That I win significant defense on the norm creation voter, then the impact on my shell very clearly outweighs. So he does not get access to those arguments in the first place. Now let's answer some of his offense. He says that it's. I can see a bunch of arguments that are 100% responsive, but there's no cross application between us. Why you prove norm creation is good in the first place. A lot of the one is just extend to the random facts and taglines, which not answer the central thesis claim in the 1 ER is that there's no way to adjudicate how to validate the interpretation. And even if you think that framing should validate the interpretation, we both violate. So his theory interpretation goes away. No other RBIs or anything matters because they all have forms education. So you vote F on substance.
And just shell.
Yeah. Okay. Wait, I like. I'm gonna unhighlight it.
Yeah, it's not paradigm.
Alright, are you guys finishing up or you're not?
I'm still judging.
You guys need anything from
The round's over, but we haven't made a decision.
Okay, sorry about that.
You guys need anything from the F?
No.
Yeah.